we are back on the Zero Hour. I'm your host, Richard RJ Eskow. Anyone who listens to or watches this show regularly knows how strongly I and we feel about defending Medicare, defending Social Security, and in fact, expanding both programs. Here to discuss that, Medicare in particular with us now is Robby Stern. Robby has a long and varied career. He is currently president of the Pizzara Education Fund, but he has a long record working in the labor movement and as an attorney. And Robby, I think you've had a real job or two in there as well, right?
Yeah. I was a plumber pipe fitter for about 12 years and was a gardener at the University of Washington for 4 years. And those are the places I got my start in the labor.
Yeah, well, those are good places to start, let me tell you. But we're here to talk about Medicare, and I know you've been organizing a lot around this issue, talking a lot about this issue, and we talk about it a lot on this program, of course, but even traditional Medicare is under attack. My technical description of it would be the bastards are trying to steal this too, but maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. First of all, am I right?
Yeah, you're right, unfortunately. And, we, the Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action, only learned about what was being done, late 2021, when we learned from PNHP, the Physicians for a National Health Program, that the Biden administration was carrying on a program that was implemented by the Trump administration called geographic direct contracting, which was direct contracting with third-party entities to manage the care of traditional Medicare beneficiaries. Right now, within Medicare, there's two systems. There's a Medicare Advantage system, which has a lot of problems, which is being pointed out, and we have major problems with the Medicare Advantage, but many of our people choose to be in traditional Medicare, in part because there is no third-party entity. You have a direct relationship between yourself and your providers. So the Trump administration introduced this new program, the direct contracting, geographic direct contracting program, and we learned about it, as did a number of other organizations. Big pressure built up on the Biden administration to eliminate that direct contracting program. They stepped in and ended the program, but as of the end of this year. But unfortunately, they created a new program based very much like the Trump direct contracting program that's called ACO REACH.
Or as I call it, ACO reach around, which may be a little rude, but and let's just stop for a second and talk about this what it is this actually does to people, okay? So I'm on Medicare. I decide I want traditional Medicare because I don't want any corporations or outside entities deciding what care I can and can't have. I want that to be between, as you said, me and my providers. But let's say I live in Birmingham, Alabama, or wherever, and the government decides that my area is going to have one of these geographical direct contracting arrangements. What happens to me?
Depends on who your doctor is. For example, I'll give you a very concrete example. We have a woman who lives in upstate New York, and she got a letter saying you have now been assigned to a particular direct contracting entity. The reason why was the doctor she'd been going to see for years the practice had been bought up by a direct contracting entity, and she was swept into this direct contracting entity. She couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. So she called her doctor. Her doctor was unable to provide her information. They suggested she call the direct contracting entity, which was located in Florida. She called the direct contracting entity in Florida. They said, you should talk to your own private doctor about this. She never, ever was able to get an explanation. All she knew was that if she wanted to stay with her same doctor, she was going to be subject to management by this third party entity that had a contract with the CMMI, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, and that she was going to be part of that. Either she had to do that or she had to change her primary care provider. That's what was going on with that. Now, the same thing is true. If you, Richard, are in traditional Medicare, or I am, and my doctor or your doctor is a member of a practice that has been bought up by an accountable care organization, you are automatically part of that accountable care organization unless you decide you want to leave that doctor and you want to go to someone else. Now, if you've been seeing that doctor for years and years, that's your primary care provider, let's say, or a specialist that you've been seeing for years. The last thing you want to do is change doctors, but that's your choice. Either you change your provider or you're going to be part of this accountable care organization that's going to review all of what's going on with you and determine what are the best practices in your case, but also what's going to save money. Now, the other thing you should know about this is that these direct contracting entities are able to keep up to 25 to 30% of the capitated payment that they receive from Center for Medicare Services for any administrative costs or profit. So they can take a huge bite of profit out of the money that they're getting by either delaying your care, denying your care, or any of those things. They can get a huge profit from that and are taking those profits.
So there's two important things here, Robby, and I just want to keep, stepping in and just making sure everybody's with us every step of the way, okay? So far I hear two important things. One is that it seems like as if the private sector, and we know a lot of venture, investment funds and other people are getting into the healthcare business, buying up practices. We got the insurance companies, all these other entities out there. So it seems that now that they've gotten a lot of people into Medicare Advantage, in other words, into the private profit-making system through all these inducements and offers, and then when somebody needs medical care, they find out they're in trouble. That's a whole other topic. But now it sounds like what they're doing is getting even more away from public Medicare that's worked so well for so many years, and that they're doing it by the back door. It seems to me like instead of saying to me at enrollment time, if I'm on Medicare, you want the private or the public, they're now kind of sneaking it in where I may find myself in a private system where I never wanted one, still don't want one. Maybe I don't even know I have one until all of a sudden they say, well, before I can refer you for this procedure, I got to talk to so-and-so. Is that right? Am I right so far?
Yeah, you got it. You essentially got it right. Your doctor may make a referral, but the system may say, well, they don't really need that referral, so we're just going to delay it or something like that, which is what, by the way, happened to one of our members in the Medicare Advantage system. I mean, there's a number of ways that they can turn a profit in this. And there are entities that are going into this. Be very clear. Private equity is very interested in that. And this, the firms that are doing investing in healthcare are very interested. We've got Optum, which was purchased by, the largest private insurer in healthcare. Help me with who it is. It's
was it United?
United Healthcare.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
United Healthcare bought Optum, which owns IORA. Both Optum and IORA are now entities within the traditional Medicare system, and you can get swept into those, and then and the response of CMMI is to say, if you don't like what your doctor is saying, you can always go outside. You're not tied to having to accept that decision like you are with Medicare Advantage.
Right.
But the point is that, it's going to require people to be ever so vigilant you don't know whether to trust your primary care physician or your specialist or not. Are they doing it because of the profit that they want to cut from this thing, or are they actually doing it in your best interest? So it's really, it's horrible. It's
And that's
horrible.
the second piece I want to break open, Robby Stern, is that what we're talking about here is people may not even know it, but there may come a moment when all of a sudden their providers, their doctors' financial interest is not only not aligned to theirs, it may be the very opposite of their best interest. That, I want a doctor whose only concern is keeping me well and getting me well when I get sick or injured. And now we're talking about, I might not even know. I mean, maybe there's a notification process, but I get a ton of mail of various kinds. So, I and millions of other people could unknowingly find ourselves in a situation where it's really in our doctor's best financial interest, or the company that employs or owns his practice, which comes out to the same thing, to maybe deny me care that I should be getting. And I don't even know that. And if I find it out, I've got, as you say, this terrible choice of either the person who's been treating me for years I've got to walk away from. So it seems to me that this is, how do I put it? I can see Donald Trump doing this. I can see Republicans doing this. It's a little shocking to think of Democrats doing it, particularly in this historical moment. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right about that. And it's very disappointing. There's a couple of other contradictions I just want to point out, Richard. One, right now, the traditional Medicare, their administrative costs are between 1.5% and 2%. With these third parties, they're allocating 15 to 25%, even over 25% for administrative cost and profits. So they're making a transition from a very low administrative cost system to what is going to be a very high administrative cost system. So there's an ideology behind it. The ideology behind it is that fee-for-service is inherently bad. But when you ask for the data to show you why they think fee-for-service is bad and that the incentives are bad, that is, that the doctors are incentivized to do other tests and procedures that aren't necessary, when you ask them for the data, they don't have the data for it. And they're also saying, well, we should trust these for-profit entities and their motives that more than we should trust our own healthcare provider in terms of who to trust in this situation. But what they're doing is they're building in distrust for us of our healthcare provider by introducing this profitized system within traditional Medicare.
So all I ever hear, I get hammered by politicians and pundits telling me they're worried about Medicare's financing, and yet here they're giving 15 to 25% to United Healthcare or Humana, whomever else, and it seems to me that it's profligate spending of the worst kind, based on, as you said, an ideology. And it's basic. It seems to me it's an ideology that says, competition, and it's neoliberalism, to use that term. That they're going to compete and they're going to be the most efficient, and no, the patient won't suffer. They'll just come up with new, brilliant ways to get things done. But it seems to me, at least 2/3 of our medical care in this country has been delivered that way for 75 years. I don't see the great efficiencies. I see this country spending way more than other countries that have public health insurance available to all. So where do they get this, to me, fantasy notion that these private entities are going to do something they haven't done in 75 years?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's difficult to make sense out of it, except for the power that those for-profit entities have in our political system and among the bureaucrats that run these systems. I mean, it's just there's this close relationship, and they're making decisions that don't make any sense. just think about what they could do with the additional money
Right.
that they're now going to be paying. I mean, we could have vision, hearing, and dental in Medicare. We could be reimbursing primary care providers more so that they can actually play a role of, providing better preventative care. There's so many other options that could be done here other than doing this. We already know that the Medicare Advantage system is fleecing the Medicare Trust Fund. We know what's going on there. We have the data. They are taking the money out of the Medicare Trust Fund, and it's for profit. Now we're going to introduce the same thing in traditional Medicare, and the argument they make is, oh, it'll be done more efficiently, we'll get lower costs, and we'll have higher quality of care. But there's just no reasonable data to back that up. It's just not there. And so we're doing our best to try and get the Biden administration to terminate the program, to just stop it and put the resources into traditional Medicare and deal with the questions of racial equity in our healthcare system and put the money in where it's needed to provide preventative care.
Now, I've heard, people say from the administration or adjacent to the administration, well, this is an experimental program. Is it an experimental program, or is it one that's been rolled out to a lot of people already?
Well, we know in this ACO REACH program, there's going to be between 120 and 160 entities around the country that will be participating in it. We also know that they have said, both CMS and CMMI has said, that their goal is to have every single Medicare beneficiary, traditional Medicare beneficiary, in an ACO by the year 2030. So, no, this is a huge program. It's expansive. It's going to involve millions and millions and millions of Medicare beneficiaries, traditional Medicare beneficiaries, who are going to find themselves in one of these ACO REACH entities. And we know they have a goal of having all of us in it by 2030 because they have said that. You listen to Liz Fowler, she said it. You listen to officials within CMS, and they've said it. They want everyone in an ACO by 2030.
So an idea that, as far as we know, we have no data that it works, but they want everybody in it. That's, and just let's take a second and talk to people about what an ACO is. It stands for Accountable Care Organization, as I understand. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my understanding of an accountable care organization, and there's some of this that makes sense. An accountable care organization, they try to coordinate care. They look at what is going on. Their payment, their capitated payment, is made on a risk-adjusted basis. Now, there's big problems with that. There's a lot of fraud, for example, in Medicare Advantage, with capitated payments being based on risk, because what the for-profit entities tend to do is they tend to report higher risk that's there so they can get higher payments. But what the Accountable Care Organization is supposed to do is it's supposed to coordinate care so that doctors and other providers are talking to each other and they are getting on time necessary treatment that they need. That's what the Accountable Care Organization is supposed to do. But the reality is that can be done under traditional Medicare if you reimburse the primary care providers what they need to be reimbursed, and you don't have to be paying profit and high administrative costs to achieve it. There is benefit to coordination of care, and there is value in having people who, they're looking at holistically and trying to see what's the best treatment we can give them. But if your primary goal is profit, you have to question how much your decisions are going to be driven by profit and how much your decisions are going to be driven by what's in the best interest of the patient.
This to me seems like a complete repeat of the history of HMOs, because when HMOs, right? Because when HMOs came along, it was, it's a wonderful new idea. Health maintenance organization. People get paid for maintaining health, and everybody will communicate, and everybody will work for the best interests of the patient, and then the money people come in, and it's like, oh, or we could just not give people medical care and make a lot of money. It seems to me we're just repeating this, but on a much more massive nationwide scale. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. You know, there was the ideology of managed care and HMOs, and that turned out to be a loser because people were really angry about the care they were getting. They felt themselves being managed out of care rather than getting care. And so this is the newest iteration of the neoliberal health care policy junkies. And this is what we're having to live with, and which we're fighting to try and terminate. We're not living with it. We're doing what we can to get the Biden administration to terminate. But it's an uphill battle. It's a huge uphill battle.
And I want to talk about the battle in just a second, but it just suddenly occurred to me, Robby Stern, and so I have to get it out, that if their goal is to have everybody in this program by 2030, then the idea that you can opt out of it is actually a lie, because if everybody is expected to be in this program, there will be no place to opt out to, because all the doctors who do Medicare will be in it.
Right.
So they're actually forcing this down the entire Medicare population's throat while pretending that we people have some choice in the matter.
You know what's going to happen, Richard, is I was speaking to someone who's a member of our organization just this week, and she had a doctor who she liked very much, who was working in the practice that was bought by Optum. And that doctor ultimately left that practice because she was limited. She was a primary care provider. She was limited to 15-minute visits. And she went into a concierge practice. And this member, her husband decided, look, we're going to pay for this because you have to have it. But that's what people are going to be forced to deal with.
Right.
Is it those that can afford to private pay for a concierge practice will? And everyone else is going to be caught up in this for-profit system. And, you know, CMS says, oh, well, look, we're going to monitor it and we're going to make sure that they don't act in an incorrect way. And here we learn from a study by the Inspector General of HHS that there have been 17% wrongful denials of healthcare by Medicare Advantage plans. I know, how well are they looking over Medicare Advantage? What would make us think that they're going to do any better with ACOs? So, I mean, it's something that we have to do everything we can to stop, and that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, there's so many people around the country who have no idea what is going on, have no idea what's about to happen.
And, you know, that, as you well know from a communications point of view, that's the tough part here, right? Because it's not like one sentence. I mean, there's a sentence, you know, I started with, keep the bastards out of our care, but really there's not, you know, you have to do a little explaining to people, right?
That's right.
But the implications of it are gigantic, and they're really bad. So, you know, you run an educational group. What are you guys doing? What kind of experience are you have trying to educate people about this?
Well, good you should ask that. So we just ran full page ads in 4 of the highest distributed newspapers in Western Washington. We ran a full-page ad in the Seattle Times, the Tacoma News Tribune, the Everett Herald, and the Bellingham Reporter. And the headline was, "Hands off our Medicare. Stop Wall Street and the insurance industry from taking over traditional Medicare through ACO reach." Then we provide bullet points on what's going on, and we tell people then, call so-and-so. We're putting pressure on our congressional delegation, and we have Representative Jayapal and Representative Adam Smith, who have already come out against ACO reach and have called for the termination of the program. We're working our congressional delegation to put pressure on the Biden administration to stop it. We've also proposed, because we think that who really should be really interested in this are the organizations that are working for Medicare for All.
Mm-hmm.
Because if ACO REACH is implemented, what's going to happen is the private sector is going to sink its hooks deeply into traditional Medicare. Traditional Medicare was the vehicle for moving a public Medicare for all system. We're going to lose it. What we're going to have is if we're going to have Medicare for all, it's going to be Medicare Advantage for all. It's going to be privatized Medicare for all. This is a sentinel moment for the Medicare for all movement, is to stop this program before they sink their hooks deeply into traditional Medicare. And to talk about how much money is involved, by 2026, $1.6 trillion is going to be spent by the Medicare system for Medicare services. And you got to know that those for-profit systems, the private equity, the investment companies, the large corporations, they want a piece of that action, as well as a whole variety of other areas. And what's going to happen to the Medicare for All movement? Where are they going to go to? Are they going to talk about creating a whole new system with Medicare for All? At least we have with traditional Medicare a vehicle for achieving Medicare for All. So we're
what else we have, Robby? And I think this is really important, although maybe not that easy to explain, but we have all the data in one place. We can actually look at what's happening to all these people, what procedures are working best, where doctors or others may be committing fraud, you name it. But the advantage of having, first of all, the efficiency of scale, of doing everything more or less in one place, and then knowing, not in a 1984 sort of Big Brother way, but in a way of, you don't need to know who the individuals are, but what the patterns, what the trends are. We lose that too. And it seems to me that's a big deal, that goes into private hands now, and they're the ones. I mean, you want to worry about Big Brother, that's who you should worry about. They're going to know everything about you, and they're going to use it to their own advantage.
That's right. So anyway, we're running these full page ads. We're trying to get the major players in the Medicare for All movement to get involved in trying to stop ACO REACH. We're trying to show them that if ACO REACH, and these big players get involved in traditional Medicare, they're not going to let loose. And there's enough of them that own enough of or influence enough of the politicians in Congress to make the hope of creating a public Medicare for all system and helping us have a decent healthcare system in our country. We're gonna set it back for generations with this.
It's a great point, and I think you should. And I wanted to also ask you, since you have a labor background as well, is this something we might be able to get organized labor interested in? Because it seems to me, you work your whole career, then you retire, and then the same SOBs who might have made your work life difficult are now going to control your medical care. It seems to me that would be an organizing point too. But what do you think?
Well, we had a resolution in front of the Washington State Labor Council, which is Washington is now, I think, the second or third most organized state in the country. And the Washington State Labor Council came out in opposition to ACO REACH and calling for the termination of ACO REACH. That is not the position of the National AFL-CIO. We've had communication with the National, and their position is, we want to wait and see what happens. So we're not getting them, but we're getting the interest of some of the national unions who are tied to Medicare for All. Certainly, the folks that Mark Dudzick's organization are very interested in this. And so we're a small little organization in the left-hand corner of the Pacific Northwest. And so we're just trying to get others. And frankly, we're having some influence on that, and it's spreading around the country. Whether we can get it done quickly enough, what we'd really like to do is take the kind of ads that we have run in our newspapers here and have them run in 14, 15, 16 cities around the country, right, alerting people to that. And that would help to build a genuine grassroots movement that would put pressure on the Biden administration to terminate the program. but the resources that are necessary to do that are beyond our capacity. So we're going to be talking to other organizations that seem to be deeply committed to Medicare for all and see if they are willing to step in with significant resources to try and make people aware of what's about to happen to them and give them the opportunity organizationally to try and stop it. Labor will be among the organizations, as there are some labor unions that have called for Medicare for all and are active in promoting Medicare for all. And we'll be talking to those organizations, or trying to talk to those organizations, to see if they're willing to step into a national campaign to stop it.
Well, you guys are a little organization, but I know your work. You're punching above your weight, so good for you. And where can people go to find, and it's such an important cause, so where can people go, if anywhere, to find out more about what you guys are doing?
They can go to our website, www.psara.org, and they'll read about, we have a number of things going on. Right now, we have a letter campaign to our congressional delegation and to HHS and the Biden administration. We have over 120 organizations here in Washington that includes the Washington State Democratic Party and the Washington State Labor Council that are calling for the termination of ACO REACH. And we have over 1,000 community leaders who are calling for the termination. The City Council of Seattle passed a resolution calling for the termination of ACO REACH. So you can see all of that on our website. That's all there. And you can see the letters that we are promoting around our state to get more people to sign on. We're sending the letters to our congressional delegation and HHS and the White House every month with increased organizations and members on it. That's all on our website. We have a newsletter, like I said, that we put out every month. Those newsletters are also on our website, and there's articles about this. We also have a video that Representative Jayapal did with one of our members calling for the termination of the program. That's on our website. There's lots of resources on our website that people can look at and learn more about this campaign.
Well, I encourage them to do that. And then again, it's psara.org. That's Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action. Robby Stern is the president of the PSARA Education Fund. Robby, thanks for all the great work you're doing on this issue, and thanks for coming on the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. And we'll be right back after this. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.